The starters got in more work, nearly the entire first half for some, in the Chiefs' second preseason game, and they left the Arizona desert with a victory and feeling especially good about the defense. On today's Sports Beat KC, beat writers Herbie Teope and Sam McDowell discussed the Chiefs' 17-10 victory. It's Monday, August 23rd, and I'm Blair Kirchhoff. We spent a little time on the wide receiver position and what the Chiefs could do with their final choices there, also tight end. On the defensive side, there's been plenty to like through two preseason games, whether it's the starters or depth. Chris Jones came up big in Friday's game, but so did many others. Okay, let's get going talking Chiefs with Herbie and Sam. Chiefs are through their second preseason game. They went to Arizona and beat the Cardinals 17-10. Starters played most of the first half. That was fun. I think we will start the way we usually start these types of shows after a game, and that's with an injury report. There were a couple of banged up players in this game.
We know Tyreek Hill didn't play because his hamstring tightened up. Andy Reid told reporters, our esteemed Sam McDowell and Vahe, the guys who made the trip. Rashad Fenton, hamstring injury, injured it during practice punt returns before the game. You had running back, Darrell Williams left with a concussion. Then you had Clyde Edwards-Helaire leave with an ankle injury, which is why we saw a lot of Darwin Thompson and his leaping ability in the game. He loves to jump over people. And I think that's about it. The main guys that got hurt off the top of my head.
Yeah, still missing Frank Clark and Derek Nottie and
the guys that were hurt in training camp, correct.
The guys who haven't been out there, like LDT is still dealing with his ham injury, and of course Kyle Long with his knee injury.
Well, Long and Malik Herring are still on the physically unable to perform list, so until they actually put into practice, we'll never see them out there.
And Andy Reid has noted to us that Frank Clark's injury is something minor, even though he's been dealing with it for a couple of weeks now.
But minor enough where he won't be able to talk to us.
Hey, speaking of that, I thought, Sam, you and Vahe did a good job carrying the media load out there in the post game. You sounded good on the, getting those questions in. Hey, speaking of the running backs, the Chiefs played all four in the first half. By halftime, Darwin Thompson had played. So I don't know, probably a little bit more activity on the injury list than you'd want to see with Darrell Williams and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But you mentioned the Tyreek Hill hamstring tweak, and I noticed, Sam, I think it was to your question to McCole Hardman after the game, that nobody knew until game time that Ty Hill wasn't going to play. So that changed the approach of the offense, and that left McCole Hardman as wide receiver number one. And I think that became the first storyline of the game, the connection and the timing between Patrick Mahomes and McCole Hardman. There was a really nice connection on, maybe it was the first attempt of the first target, that slant that went for 13 yards. But when they got closer to the goal line, they just didn't seem to sync up, Hardman and Mahomes. So let's start with that. And what to make of the errant throws by Patrick Mahomes toward McCole Hardman, one into the back of the end zone, probably over his head, and the other one was Mahomes across his body with as Hardman was going across the end zone. There
was one that Patrick Mahomes said he threw too hard. He put too much zip on the ball. There was another one that Hardman said was some sort of miscommunication, the sort of corner route to the left side of the end zone. And so I think Patrick Mahomes, anytime I hear McCole Hardman say it's a miscommunication, I'm guessing the quarterback is on the right page. But the most interesting part of all that was that Hardman ran a couple of Tyreek Hill routes. The first completion you're talking about is a Tyreek Hill play. And then there was another one that's sort of a drag route across the field where it's a zone coverage. They certainly would expect Tyreek Hill to be able to race past anybody over the middle of the field. And Hardman just didn't get there quite in time. And so he's got the speed to do it, is exactly what Patrick Mahomes said. So again, I think the sort of, but between the lines reading of that is he didn't and he probably should have. And so that's always been the development with McCole Hardman. When we heard Joe Blameyer outline that, actually, it's the first time we've heard a coach, I think, just explicitly say that McCole Hardman can fly by anybody he wants to fly by. It's just getting all the other routes precise. And so that's been the development for 3 years now. I think we all expected him to take a leap forward there last year. So that's why we're talking about it now, is because he didn't really do it last year. And so without Sammy Watkins, it's a big storyline for whether or not he can do that this year.
The interesting thing there, too, is whenever you hear a wide receiver say it's miscommunication, that means obvious lack of chemistry. Let's just go ahead and translate what that means. And that is kind of concerning because, as Sam points out, it's the little things. You can have all the speed in the world, but if you're not on the same page as your quarterback, that becomes an issue as the season rolls along. Maybe he'll take the step. This is a learning process, as we all like to say. It's an evaluation process to preseason games. They know what they need to work on, but you can't have those kinds of mistakes. You can't have miscommunications once the games start counting for real.
As I was watching the first half, it just struck me how important Tyreek Hill is to this team. As you said, Sam, McCole Hardman was running Tyreek Hill routes, and the fact that Mahomes and Hill have been one of the best combinations in the NFL during their time in the NFL, I guess that's stuff I've taken for granted. When I see Mahomes target Tyreek Hill, I think there's going to be a completion there. And when McCole Hardman is running the same routes and Mahomes is targeting Hardman, it's like, oh, I don't know. It might happen, might not happen. And
I think, that's a great point. There's sort of a few guys on this team that seem irreplaceable, and it's either because they're so good or because you worry about who replaces them. With Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, I think Orlando Brown's on that list because I don't know who plays left tackle if Orlando Brown gets hurt. But with Tyreek Hill, it's both of those factors. And he might be the only position where you say it's not only how talented the guy is, but you worry about who fills in for him. So we all talked about, do they need a second wide receiver already? And so you lose Tyreek Hill, and now you're talking about going with potentially without a wide receiver 1 or a natural wide receiver 2 on the roster. So I think that's a great point, Blair. I think he's one of the guys they can least afford to lose at any point this season. Like you said, we sort of saw that play out over the first quarter on Friday.
Comes back and catches the touchdown pass from Chad Henning and makes a really nice adjustment on the underthrown ball
it's
in the end zone.
Because he had the connection with Henning.
Exactly. Hey, let's stay with the wide receiver group, which is I thought became more interesting with the Cardinals game. So I think we're all working under the assumption that Hill, Hardman, Demarcus Robinson,
Pringle,
and who am I missing? Byron Pringle. Absolutely. Are kind of etched in there as the top 4. And it becomes a little bit of maybe a battle after that among Marcus Kemp, Darius Fountain, the draft pick Cornell Powell, and then there's a balance there. Do they how many wide receivers do they keep versus tight ends, and do they want to keep as many as 4? So I think staying with if you watch the entire game, the second half, and watch the non-starters play, you saw guys like Fountain and Marcus Kemp once again have nice moments. Fountain especially, my gosh, that guy, he's gonna play for somebody somewhere this season, right? Herbie, don't you think?
Yeah, we're talking about a former draft pick from the Colts. And I'll say this, when he was out there for mandatory minicamp, the rookie minicamp, because he attended it on a tryout basis, I know he caught some of our attention. The guy is, for one, he's huge. I see number 82. I'm thinking, is that Dwayne Bowe? But it wasn't him, obviously. But he certainly looked good out there. Then he carried over in the OTAs. He kind of disappeared early in camp until the pads came on, and that's where you really you really start paying attention when the pads come on, and then all of a sudden he just started emerging. 2 straight preseason games where he has looked good. And I think Sam McDowell here tweeted out, yeah, he's going to be with another team if it's not with the Chiefs. And I certainly agree with that. He has looked, he's turned some heads, and he's got some tape now. So if the Chiefs don't keep him, another team might snatch him up in a hurry.
We haven't seen Fountain play special teams, which is why I still think Kemp probably has the edge on him. But I think the question comes down to, do the Chiefs keep the 5th round draft pick with Cornell Powell? Because he has not impressed any of us in camp. He has not impressed us in the preseason games, and Fountain has impressed us in both. I actually thought in the first time he sort of caught my eye was in one-on-ones with their top cornerbacks he was going up against in some of these one-on-ones. He's also a very vocal guy. Whenever something goes his way, he likes to make sure everybody around knows that he just made a play, which I love that sort of energy on the field, especially as an observer. Just talking to some people with the Chiefs, they realize they have a tough decision with Darius Fountain. He's not a guy that was, let's face it. I think he was probably more of a camp body. Whenever you're a tryout in rookie camp, you're an extra body in training camp, and he's certainly just so much more than that right now.
The Chiefs kept 6 wide receivers last year with their initial 53. It was Hill, Watkins, Robinson, Hardman, Pringle, and Kemp. So if you remove Watkins from that equation, you mentioned the top 4 already. They do have, if they do decide to go that route again, realistically, you could keep Kemp and you could keep Fountain if you wanted them, but do you give up on Cornell Powell like you mentioned? And I don't think that's Brett Veach's MO to say, hey, I blew it with a draft pick. You look how long it took for him to finally cut bait on Breland Speaks. So this is going to be a fascinating development as we roll to the initial 53 here in about a week and a half.
Well, if you look at the stats from previous Andy Reid teams, wide receiver 5 and 6, don't get many targets, right? I think those positions need to be special teams players. They better be contributors on special teams. And of those candidates, the one we know for sure is Marcus Kemp.
Yeah.
And he's a capable wide receiver, right? He's not a, he's not a speedster or anything like that, but he is a gunner for Dave Tobe's, coverage teams. And I got to think that there's going to be a place on the roster for him. So to me, it comes down to Powell and Fountain Fountain. So what I don't know what they do there. Because clearly one has been better than the other.
There's the other thing about Marcus Kemp that he's got a leg up on is he knows every position. So he knows every route in the playbook. And so your wide receiver 5 is probably only going to get in the game if you've got some injuries. And so a guy that knows every position is a major aid in that. So that's why I think it'd be hard to, keep one of those other guys at the expense of Marcus Kemp. So I do think it comes down to Cornell Powell and Darius Fountain. And some teams only keep 5. I think 2 years ago, the Chiefs only kept 5. Last year, they kept 6. I just think that group is too deep to only keep 5 this year. I think we're going to see 6. And I think you sort of play a game with, can I get one of these guys back on the practice squad if they don't make my initial 53? And I don't think you can get Darius Fountain back on the practice squad if you don't keep him on your initial 53. There's too much tape out there from these first 2 games. And with Cornell Powell, maybe somebody takes a chance on him because he had a great year at Clemson last year. But I also think it's a red flag if he's a 5th round draft pick and doesn't make the team. And maybe you have a shot at getting him back on your practice squad if he doesn't make your initial 53. And maybe that's part of the calculus for deciding which guy to keep.
Herbie, I was hoping for a bigger game.
You were hoping for a bigger game.
I will say this. Louis Riddick, one of the great football evaluators in the National Football League, who should be a general manager. To me, it's stunning that Louis Riddick from ESPN is not a general manager. But I'm glad he pointed it out. There were 2 plays, Darwin Thompson's 13-yard run and then Gore's 19-yard run. Those runs don't happen if not for Fortson's blocking. And I love that Louis Riddick pointed that out, because the tight end, here's the thing with preseason. Maybe, Andy Reid mentioned last week, we made a concerted effort to get the ball to Reese Fountain. We wanted to see what he could do. The same thing could apply to Fortune here. Let's just use him as in a blocking role, because we want to see what he can do. Remember, he's a transitioning wide receiver to tight end. He packed on 20 pounds of muscle for that role. And I know he worked out exclusively this offseason with one of the great blocking tight ends of recent memory, Central Missouri's own Delaney Walker. So, he worked out this summer on blocking, and it showed Friday night on those two runs. Exceptional blocks to seal the edge, opened up the hole, and the running back just scampered right behind Fortune's block. Did he do well in the offensive point? No, he did not. But did he do what he was asked to do? Absolutely. You got to see that as a tight end. Can he be a blocker? That's what he did.
That is just some incredible spin. They didn't want him to catch any passes on Friday, Blair.
No, but I'm just saying Louis Riddick pointed that out at the end of the broadcast. I think because it was a 3-person booth, and one of the people mentioned, what do you think about the blocking? And he specifically mentioned Jody Fortson. Yeah.
Well, they've got the blocking tight end in Blake Bell. I want Fortune to be a receiving threat, and he would be if he was on the field. So I think that's another. I think Noah Gray is also he'll make the team, and they'll develop him. Fortune's the guy who is sort of, to me, on the bubble, and I see so much upside with him, that just a big body target that the Chiefs could use. And if he is as good a blocker here, especially if they're, if they're serious about emphasizing the running game and possession time this year, he could be valuable there. Hey, before we leave the offense, I just want to mention: can we agree that
those are among the most entertaining plays that we get? No, let's keep Demarcus Robinson back there.
There are two things that I always cringe. He always takes the step back. He'll always go back like a yard or two, and then he holds the football like a loaf of bread. And I'm like, I just cringe when special teams, you got to tuck that thing around. It's a high impact part of the football game. Players are flying all around, and you're holding the ball out like this, in front of you or to the side of you, and it's not even tucked away. I'm like, oh my goodness. No.
Well, absolutely. How could you forget that play?
Remember that play in New Orleans last year where he went back.
It was also like the last play of the half. I mean, he had to go 70 yards in order for any of that to matter.
Exactly. So, all right. We've gone too long without talking about the defense. We'll do that after we take a break.
This episode is brought to you by HP Plus. In a world full of smart devices, shouldn't your printer be smart too? It is with HP Plus. These printers know when they're running low, so you always get the ink you need delivered right when you need it. Plus, you save up to 50% on ink, so you can print whatever you want, as much as you want, anytime you want. Huh, that is pretty smart. Get 6 free months of instant ink when you choose HP Plus. Conditions apply. Visit hp.com/smart for details.
We're back with Herbie Teope and Sam McDowell, who cover the Kansas City Chiefs. The defense was terrific. The starting defense was just, it doesn't get much better, right? 3 series against Kyler Murray and the Cardinals starting offense, 3 3-and-outs, a total of -1 yard of total offense. I don't know where to start, except let's start with starters. And there was a surprise one with Juan Thornhill at safety. It had been an interesting week, to say the least, for Juan Thornhill. Sam, you were the one that first noticed that he was running out with the starters. The Chiefs went with 3 safeties. I wonder if that wasn't a scheme thing as much as a
I think there's been a major point of emphasis just to get him plays. So he played basically 3 full quarters on Friday. And, Andy Reid said it after the game. I think his quote was, "We need Juan. We need him feeling good about himself." He's not a guy they're going to give up on just because he didn't, let's face it, he did not play well in the preseason opener. And I thought he played really well on Friday. And that goes beyond the interception. I mean, the interception is, we could watch 17, I was going to say 16, but 17 Chiefs games this year. And that's probably the best interception we're going to see all year. So I think I've been saying it for a while, but I think he's as crucial to this defense, his development, or just getting back to where he was at the end of his rookie year would just be a tremendous development for the Chiefs defense, because they don't have a replacement for him if he's not playing well. We've seen them try other guys there. We've seen them try Devin Key. Heck, we saw Armani Watts get a few snaps with the ones in practice. Their best defense is with Juan Thornhill playing at his best.
Here's something interesting with Juan Thornhill, to Sam's point about the Chiefs wanting to get him on the field. He played the second most defensive snaps in the preseason opener against the 49ers with 40. And then he led the team in defensive snaps against the Cardinals with 32. So, yeah, they're absolutely trying to get him on the field.
He makes Tyrann Mathieu a better player when he's playing well. He allows Tyrann Mathieu to roam, to do the things that frees him up, right? To do the things that Tyrann Mathieu does. And to me, Juan Thornhill has to be the team's second best safety.
When Daniel Sorensen's in the game, instead of Juan Thornhill, Tyrann Mathieu has to play deeper. And, you want Juan Thornhill playing that deep route. First of all, he's got more speed than Tyrann Mathieu or Daniel Sorensen does. So I think when Juan Thornhill's in there, and again, it depends on if he's playing at his best, of course, but if he's in there playing confident, you get better at two positions, really. Suddenly you're in the box, safety becomes better because Matthew's an upgrade on Daniel Sorensen as well.
Daniel Sorensen is a thumper first to me. He's really good at it. Run stopper. I think when I like him on the field in exotic defenses, but I like him as a run guy. And you're right. So good for Juan Thornhill. You're right about that interception. That was incredible. The stretched out. I thought at first maybe the ball had hit the ground, but he did a great job, not only of catching it, but securing it. And
something else that's of note on that play, Blair, which I'm writing about this week, but he baited the quarterback intentionally on that play. He said he took a stutter step and then darted to make that play. And I don't think there's a better example of him playing with more confidence this year than last year, than just to take that risk. I mean, last year, I think he was so concerned about, can I get here? Like he said, can I run fast enough to get to this spot? Can I jump high enough to cover this spot? I don't think he takes a chance like that last year and tries to bait a quarterback. I mean, that's sort of next level stuff.
He's healthy. That tells me he's healthy.
Yeah. So I thought that was the best defensive play of the game, maybe the best play of the game for the Chiefs. The second best defensive play, take your pick between the Chris Jones sack, which was just incredible maneuvering. So it was lined up outside and make an inside move. Kyler Murray didn't know what had hit him. He'd gotten there so fast. Chris Jones did. Or I thought this was excellent too. L'Jarius Sneed chasing Kyler Murray out of the pocket, and Anthony Hitchens gets credit for the sack because he was closest to him when Kyler Murray went out of bounds. But I just loved what I saw from the, not only from the defensive line, but the pressure on Kyler Murray. Didn't have, one of the really nice young quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think Murray's a little bit overrated because I don't think he does really well with pressure, specifically from his throwing side. So I was a little bit surprised to see that Spagnuolo dialed up, those sort of blitzes in the preseason. The Sneed play is a perfect example, a guy that comes from his throwing angle. But one of the under talked about things after the game was their cornerbacks played really well. Their defensive line, of course, helped them out by not making them guard for extended periods of time. But it started off with, I think it was the second or third down play where Charvarius Ward made just a fantastic tackle on a running play in the backfield. And their cornerbacks, I just thought their cornerbacks were great in the game. And that's been, you've heard me talk about it. I thought the biggest question of their defense was their cornerbacks behind L'Jarius Sneed, and they were great.
They were great, but I think we have to also toss in the caveat that multiple all-pro wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins didn't suit up. So, well, he was suited, but he didn't play. But that's the thing about the preseason. But, you take that part aside, they did have A.J. Green out there, who is also a perennial Pro Bowl wide receiver. So they did ultimately hold up. They did very well. Yeah,
J.J. Watt
Chandler
didn't play
Jones
either
too
for the Cardinals on the defensive side. Right, Chandler Jones, who I just think he's fantastic. When he was at his peak, he was as good a pass rusher as there was in the game. So, the starting offense, 4 series, right, for Patrick Mahomes, and they only come up with a field goal, and yet the Chiefs are leading 3-0 at the end of that series of plays because of this defense. Probably not talking enough about the potential for that side of the ball. Are we? Is this are we thinking maybe a top 10 defense, or
I agree.
At least the opportunity to be that?
Andy Reid was absolutely correct at the end of mandatory minicamp, where he said enough is not being said about the addition of Jaron Reed. And we talked about Chris Jones. Chris Jones's ability to flex outside, and we've seen it in training camp. We've seen it here in preseason action. He's rotating back and forth between the left and the right defensive end spots. So you're allowing him, arguably the best pass rusher on the team. And when I see him doing that, I'm thinking of J.J. Watt. When J.J. Watt was healthy, they let him freelance. He got to pick which side of the defensive line that he wanted to rush from because he spotted a weakness. And Jaron Reed allows Jones to do so much more. And as we know, especially in today's National Football League, you have to be able to affect the passer, the quarterback. And then Jones stays healthy, and if Frank Clark doesn't get suspended and he's playing, this has absolutely the makings of a top 10 defense, in my opinion.
We can't get a comment from Andy Reid about Chris Jones moving to the edge, because he always reverts the conversation back to the only reason he's playing on the edge is because they have Jaron Reed. I think we've asked him several times, how do you think Chris is developing out there at the edge? And that's always what we get instead. But as far as where the Chiefs finish, do they have a top 10 defense? I don't think that they're one of the 10 best defenses in the NFL, but I didn't think that last year, and they still finished, I think, like 10th or 11th in points allowed. So they could get there and a statistic like that. But line them up wise, I think I could find 10 other defenses I'd probably take over them.
I'll be the homer here. I'll take the Chiefs. I'll be the homer. I'll take the Chiefs.
I do like the potential. Yeah, I do like the potential. Look, we didn't even talk about guys like Turk Wharton, Colin Saunders, who have been playing really well, and Willie Gay, who played in his first preseason game, guy who has played in the Super Bowl, but finally played in a preseason game on
I think that the biggest question mark that you're going to have on the Chiefs defense, if the cornerback position, if that question is answered, we still need to see how they do against the run. Like last year it was an Achilles heel, but I think, these young linebackers, if they develop into what we think they can develop into, then this has the makings of really good defense. With Hitchens and Bolton and Gay, and then even if you're rotating Ben Neiman in there. That's the biggest question mark to me. Can they stop the run consistently?
Okay, let's get out of here.
Tuesday, the 24th, they got to go from 85 to 80. And then the final one is Tuesday, the 31st. They'll have to establish the initial 53.
Okay, and of course they play Friday night against the Minnesota Vikings at Arrowhead Stadium. Okay, hey, Sam McDowell, Herbie Teope, thanks guys. We'll do it again soon. That'll do it for today. Thanks to our SportsBeat KC production staff of Beth Welsh, Monty Davis, Jeff Rosen, Chris Fickett, and Savannah Smith. A tip of the cap to Herbie Teope and Sam McDowell for stopping by and talking Chiefs. Links to their stories can be found in the show notes and on kansascity.com. Hey, we have another deal for you. You can subscribe to Sports Pass for 99 cents a month. That's right, 99 pennies a month. Sports Pass is the online version of the Star Sports section. You get all the stories that appear in the print editions of the Star, plus additional stories that appear only on the website, and of course they post first on kansascity.com. After 3 months, it auto-renews at $5.99 a month unless you cancel. It's a great time to subscribe. Read about what's going on with the Chiefs, the Royals, the colleges, our soccer teams, and more. How do you get it? Go to kansascity.com/sportspass2020. That's kansascity.com/sportspass2020. You want more than just sports coverage? Check out the entire Kansas City Star product. Sports news, features, commentary, and analysis, the whole thing. You get all the stories written by my talented colleagues, plus additional national news, sports, features, and business coverage with the e-edition. The details for all of these deals can be found at account.kansascity.com/subscribe. And if you're having trouble hunting down any of those offers, you just send me an email, bkirkhoff@kcstar.com, and I will get you to the right place. So whether it is the Sports Pass or the full subscription, you're getting and supporting the best sports and news coverage in Kansas City and helping us produce programs like SportsBeat KC. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back on Tuesday with another episode.